What's up YouTube? My name is Caden and you're watching Gas It Garage. In today's video, we are going to be finally painting my 420cc drag bike. Alright, so the last time you guys saw this mini bike was back in October when I took this thing up to Busco Beach ATV Park for mini Mayhem with cars and cameras. And I took this thing to the dirt drag strip there, and holy cow, this thing was an absolute rocket ship because it was keeping up pretty darn well with a lot of the 450cc sport quads up there that were pushing probably 60 to 70 miles an hour by the end of the track. So for what this thing is, it's really fast and it's got quite a bit of power for what it is. So today, the number one thing I want to do is strip this thing down so I can paint it, because this thing has a lot of spots on it, like especially up underneath the engine here, that are just pretty rusty and they need to be cleaned off and painted so this thing will last longer and also look a lot better, because it's got a lot of ugly weld spots and just different random colors of paint. It's got some blue there, silver back here, black up here. It's just all over the place. So I'm going to be stripping this thing down and repainting pretty much the whole frame. And then another thing I want to do is clean the carburetor, because I think when I was up there riding it, it sucked in a lot of really fine dust because I forgot to oil the air filter, and I think it just caused the engine to start running poorly, and it just got more and more difficult to start, and now I just simply can't start this thing. So I'm pretty sure it's the carburetor, but if it's not, I'll figure out what other things that could be. But for right now, I'm just going to clean the carburetor. I'm also going to change the oil, and I'm going to paint this thing. So for right now, let's go ahead and start stripping this frame down so I can prep this thing for paint. Alright, so I decided to take the carburetor off first just to clean it and to get this engine running before I strip this bike down. And yeah, this is why you oil your air filter. When I took this thing to Busco Beach, it's very dusty there. And although the air filter that I have on here does filter out a lot of the major dust particles, the super duper fine stuff still gets through if you don't oil your air filter and gums up the inside of this carb. The inside of this thing should be clean as a whistle, and it's covered in fine dust, which is a really bad thing for a carburetor, and it probably explains why this engine was becoming harder and harder to start over the course of that weekend. And now it pretty much won't start at all. And this is probably why. So I'm going to clean this carburetor, and after that, I'll throw it back on here and see if I can start this engine up. And then after that, I will start stripping this bike down so I can paint it. So now that I have the carburetor put back on, I'm going to bring this thing outside and put some gas in it and try to start it up. All right, so before I start this thing up, I'm going to take the chain off, which will allow me to rev the engine without the bike going anywhere. Alright, turn the fuel on. I'm wearing headphones because this thing is stupid loud. I'm going to choke it. Oh yeah, this thing sounds absolutely mean. So now that I know it runs, let's start stripping this thing down so I can paint it. All right, so I have this bike mostly stripped down. I just have to take the wheels and tires off still. And I was trying to take the forks off, but the lock nuts that are on here are so tight that they're just seriously fighting me trying to even break loose. So if I can't get those off, what I'll do is just leave the forks on here and just wrap them up in painter's tape so they don't get overspray on them. And the paint on the forks is still in pretty decent condition. So what I might do is just, after the main frame is painted, I might just throw a little bit of paint on a couple of spots here and there that need it, like those little nicks right there, the rust right here. I'm also going to cut these off because they just look bad. And speaking of cutting things off, there's a couple of things on this frame that I need to get rid of. Like, I need to cut this off right here because I had removed this tube to fit the head of the engine in. And I'm also going to redo this little battery mount right here because it's not level and it also just kind of looks ugly. So I'm going to redo that. And then I'm also going to redo the gas tank mount on the side back here because it looks like absolute garbage. So I'm just going to redo this with 2 pieces of angle iron, one here, and actually probably just a piece of flat bar right there. And then I'm going to grind it smooth and make it look good for paint. So let's get started taking the wheels and tires off. I'm going to try one more time to get the lock nuts off, but if I can't, I'll just tape that up like I said before. And then after the tires are off, then I can start grinding down all the ugly welds, cutting off what I need to cut off, and grinding all the rust off of this thing so I can prep it for paint. So I have all of the grinding and welding done on this thing that I needed to do, other than the wheelie bar mount. Whoa, total brain fart moment. I meant to say battery box. And also cleaning up the welds and wire brushing the wheelie bar. But I'll do both of those things off camera. And then I also wiped down the whole frame with a couple of wet rags just to get all the dust and dirt off before I paint this thing. And for paint, what I'm going to do is coat this thing in self-etching primer, and then I'm going to hit it with a coat of black paint, let that dry, and then a second coat of black paint to make sure it's nice and thick and durable. And then I'm going to hit it with a clear coat so it lasts longer. And then on the wheelie bar, I'm probably just going to buy some paint primer mix because there's already paint on this. And I'm going to hit that with the silvery paint that's already on there. And then on the forks here, I'm just going to kind of clean up and then paint whatever spots I need to on it. So next thing I'm going to do is set this thing outside on a tarp so I can start painting. Alright guys, now that I've got this frame all painted up and I've given it time to fully dry and cure, now I can finally start reassembling this mini bike. I can't wait to see how this thing's gonna look. finally got the drag bike all painted up and put back together, and I have to say it's looking really, really good. I decided not to repaint the fenders just because they kind of get beat up and dirty, but I mean the color on them is still pretty decent. I did repaint the little storage box here because it was very faded and the paint on it was just getting pretty destroyed. So I repainted it and it looks pretty good. I'm probably going to clean up the seat a little bit because it is dirty, but overall I have to say this thing looks pretty darn good. I mean, it is just a mini bike, but I mean, this thing looks pretty awesome. I really like all the black on the frame. It's nice and shiny and cool looking. And then I have the accent color. It's like a stone gray on the forks and the wheelie bar. And then we finally have a good looking battery box and a much better gas tank mount back here. I put in a piece of tubing right there instead of angle iron because it just looks a lot cleaner. And there's only one weld on it, so it looks pretty good. This thing could really use a new seat, but I mean, it's really not too bad. Now, I actually am going to be selling this bike, mainly because I just hardly ever ride it anymore, and I'm actually wanting to move on and buy something else. I'm actually probably going to get a dirt bike here pretty soon, and I think I found one that's pretty cool and actually kind of rare on Facebook Marketplace, and hopefully I'll be going to pick it up here in the next few days. So you'll see a video on it soon enough. Now, I probably will do a bonus video on this bike. I might end up just cleaning it up and maybe painting the fenders. I don't know. I'll think about it a little bit. And then I might put a new chain on it. And then I might do a couple more small things to it, like maybe some new foot pegs and some adjustments to the wheelie bar, stuff like that. And maybe clean up the wheels and tires a little bit. And also I will definitely have some more ride footage of this thing, because the only ride footage I have is just a couple of pulls on the driveway and then riding it at Mini Mayhem. So I might take it up the road a little bit. And then after that, I'm probably going to sell it because I need some cash to buy a dirt bike. So in just a second, at the end of this video, I'm going to put together a little montage of some cool shots of this bike because, I mean, it looks pretty cool. But for right now, thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Enjoy the montage. Legend.